Webster defines crunch time as a critical moment or period, like the end of a game, when decisive action is needed. Every sports fan knows this time in the game. Your palms sweat just a little more, your heart races just a little bit faster, and you live and die with every play until the final seconds tick off the clock and you're either celebrating a victory or disappointed by the defeat. The team at Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network understands just how critical these moments are. For us, it begins as soon as the next set of games are on the board. We evaluate the opening lines and any breaking news throughout the week. We cover each game inside and out, whether it's from inside the locker room to a huddle down on the field, the court, or the ice. We take you inside the meeting room with scouts, coaches, and executives. We have our fingers on the pulse of all the sports that we cover: the National Hockey League, NBA, college basketball, college football, and the National Football League. We are the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network, and we're here to help you find your sports advantage. After all the data has been crunched, we then turn it over to Kenneth for the best analysis around. His unique perspective in both understanding the data and how it applies to the game and how you win is the Crunch Time Sports Advantage. Are you ready? The Crunch Time Jet is fueled and ready for takeoff, and the Crunch Time Express is about to leave the station. Your VIP pass has been approved, so all aboard.
Welcome to the SEC Conference Call, your ultimate guide to one of the nation's best basketball conferences. This show is your courtside seats for all of the great action. We will spotlight the players to watch, take you inside the huddle with the coach's playbook, and deliver the expert analysis you've come to expect from us here at the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network. We're thrilled to cover the heart-pounding action of this incredible conference. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. You can also follow us on Twitter at CrunchTimeVIP. And don't forget to visit our website at crunchtimesportsadvantage.com for all of our fantastic blogs and to learn how you can join the Crunch Time Express with one of our handicapping packages. Whether you're looking for an edge in sports wagering or just want more insights, we've got you covered. 16 teams, one conference, infinite excitement. The SEC has been the stage for legendary players, iconic coaches, and unforgettable rivalries. This is where passion meets competition and championship dreams are forged. Welcome to the SEC Conference Call. And now let's head to the studio with our host, Jessica, and our founder and senior analyst, Kenneth. Welcome back to the SEC Conference Call. Hi, everyone. I'm Tina. Jessica will be back next week. It's another thrilling weekend of SEC basketball with high-stakes matchups and intense rivalries across the league. Let's take a look at this week's slate of games. First, the LSU Tigers head to Tuscaloosa to take on the Alabama Crimson Tide at the always hostile Coleman Coliseum. Can LSU pull off an upset, or will the Tide roll in front of their home crowd? In Fayetteville, the Oklahoma Sooners travel to face the surging Arkansas Razorbacks in the deafening atmosphere of Bud Walton Arena. The Hogs will look to protect their home court. The game of the week takes us to Neville Arena, where the Tennessee Volunteers clash with the Auburn Tigers. With two top-tier teams battling it out, this game could have major implications for SEC standings and March seeding. Next up, it's a border rivalry as the Georgia Bulldogs head to Gainesville to face the Florida Gators at Exactech Arena at the Stephen C. O'Connell Center. Expect plenty of energy as these two fight for positioning in the conference race. The Ole Miss Rebels hit the road to face the Missouri Tigers at Mizzou Arena. Missouri's fan base will look to energize their team as they push for a key conference victory. In Columbia, the Mississippi State Bulldogs square off against the South Carolina Gamecocks at Colonial Life Arena. Both teams will be desperate for a win to keep their seasons on track. A Texas showdown takes center stage in Austin, where the Aggies face the Longhorns at the Moody Center. Bragging rights are on the line in this battle of Lone Star State powerhouses. Finally, in Nashville, the Kentucky Wildcats visit the Vanderbilt Commodores at the unique and historic Memorial Gymnasium. The Wildcats are determined to make a statement, but Vanderbilt is no stranger to pulling off surprises at home. From key rivalries to games with major postseason implications, this week's SEC matchups promise nonstop action. Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. And now let me welcome in Kenneth for the breakdown of today's games.
And Tina, fantastic job with the lead in. We're giving Summer the weekend off after coming off a very grueling college football playoff. So looking forward to having her back in the studio next week. Hi, everyone. Kenneth here, senior analyst and founder of this great company, the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network. We got 8 great games to get to it. So, Tina, you know what to do. Take control of the wheel and let's get to the matchups. And we're going to take it down to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and we're heading to the legendary Bud Walton Arena, where the Arkansas Razorbacks, needing to get a jump start on their conference record. We know that they've struggled early on in the season, welcoming in the Oklahoma Sooners. Both teams are trending in similar fashions in overall performance, making this a pivotal game for momentum, trying to get back into the hunt in conference play. Arkansas will look to build on their home court advantage, while Oklahoma's looking to secure their first road win of the season. Let's get to the team profiles here. The Oklahoma Sooners come in as our 43rd power-ranked team with a 14-4 overall record, only 1-4 in conference play. Against quality teams, they're 3-4. This team, as I said, has struggled in true road games, going 0-2. This team relies heavy on efficient shooting about 48% from the field. That's 52nd nationally. Their strengths, excellent free throw shooting about an 80% clip, and knocking down threes at a 37% clip. The Arkansas Razorbacks, coming off of that emotional win early in this week, really needs to kind of get things going here. Coach Calipari, this team comes in as our 54th power-ranked team, 12-7 on the season, 1-5 in conference play. This team has really struggled against quality opponents, going 2-7. Strong record at home, though, 10-2. And they play a very dominant defense, especially there in Bud Walton Arena. This team has only given up about 68 points per game. Their strength, defensive rebounding, so you're not getting a lot of second chance shots there, and they're averaging almost 6 blocked shots per game. That's 12th nationally. Let's take a look at the comparison here, starting when Oklahoma is on offense, going up against that Arkansas Razorback defense. As I mentioned, Oklahoma's strength is their effective field goal percentage coming into this contest, about 56.6% effective field goal percentage there. High free throw rate and efficiency, meaning they're getting to the foul line quite a bit, and then when they're getting there, they're knocking down those shots. So in a game that could be very tight, you want to make sure that you're getting to the free throw line and then you're knocking them down. Just as a comparison, folks, they're getting to the line almost 21 times per game. Now, let's take a look at some of the weaknesses for this Arkansas Razorback defense. They really struggle in limiting opponents getting to the foul line. So what that means is they're committing a lot of fouls, but they're committing a lot of shooting fouls. So instead of, before you get to the bonus and double bonus, opponents for Arkansas are able to get those and ones or get 2 free throw attempts. So Arkansas really must do a better job of keeping Oklahoma off of the foul line. Key matchup here for the Sooners when they're on offense. Their ability to score efficiently from all levels against an Arkansas interior defense will be a very big key. Stay away from those shot blockers, but don't be afraid to attack them. Get to the foul line. Now, let's take a look at the Arkansas Razorbacks when they have the ball. Balanced attack as far as their scoring goes, averaging about 77 points per game. So you're not seeing a lot of margin of separation there for Arkansas. Their average margin of victory is about 8.5 points per game. Difference for Oklahoma, their margin of victory is about 10. So these teams are used to being in very tight contests here. So let's talk about the strengths for Arkansas. Mentioned balanced scoring, excellent ball movement. This team averages about 15 assists per game. So doing a really good job there with the ball movement. Just got to continue to knock down shots. Oklahoma's weaknesses, they do have some defensive lapse, allowing about 71 points per game, and they struggle in forcing turnovers. 13 turnovers per game is what Oklahoma forces. You want to be able to turn the opponent over just a little bit more, especially now in conference play. Key matchup for Arkansas when they're on offense, they must find a way to exploit Oklahoma's defense, especially inside of the paint. And when we look at the rebounding metrics here, these teams are virtually tied in a lot of categories, or close, I should say, in a lot of categories. We're going to give an edge to Arkansas because of their stronger defensive rebounding performances there. As far as the turnover situation, these teams are roughly about the same. Oklahoma averages about 11.5 turnovers per game. They force about 13, a little over 13 per game. Arkansas also averages about 11.5 turnovers per game. They only force 12 turnovers per game. So slight edge to Oklahoma in forcing turnovers. As far as the shooting breakdowns here, both teams in that 48, well, Oklahoma's 48%, 37% from the three-point line. Arkansas, 47% from the field, 32.5% from downtown. Going to give a slight edge to Oklahoma as far as being able to knock down the threes. As far as close game situations, Oklahoma 4-2 in close games. And it's because they're knocking down 80% of their free throws. Arkansas 3-3 in close games. They knock down about 72%. So if this game is tight going down the stretch, going to give an edge to Oklahoma because of their superior free throw shooting. As far as where this line open and where we're currently sitting here this morning, this line opened with the Razorbacks as a 3.5 point favorite. As we look at the big board now, that line is still sitting there. The total for this game is 149. Looks like that under is taking a lot of tickets. But as far as the money, it looks like the money is saying that that game should probably go over. So let's give some key players here for this matchup for the Sooners. I've talked about these two young men on previous breakdowns. I'm going to give them to you once again. Jalen Moore, averaging almost 20 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, shooting almost 60% from the field. Him along with Jeremiah Fears, averaging 13 points per game, 5 rebounds per game. Going to need a big performance out of both of those two young men. And then, of course, AT for Arkansas comes in averaging a tick below 14 points per game, 4.5 assists per game. Him along with DJ Wagner, 10 points per game, shooting 81% from the free throw line. So you want to see DJ in this ball game be extremely aggressive. Big time injury note here for Arkansas. Second leading scorer on the team, Boogie Flan, out for the season with a hand injury. That does not look like it affected the line a lot in this ball game. I would be very interested to see how this matchup is going to go, especially within like the first 8 minutes of this contest. All right, let's move on to our next matchup, and that is the Florida Gators taking on the Georgia Bulldogs. And we saw Georgia lose a very heartbreaking game earlier this week. So they're going to look to get back on the winning tilt here. And you are looking live at beautiful Gainesville, Florida, where they welcome in the Georgia Bulldogs in this SEC matchup. This game features two teams going in different trajectories. Georgia enters this matchup on a 3-game losing streak, while Florida has won their last 2 conference games. Let's give you the team profiles here, starting with the Georgia Bulldogs. They come in as 35th power ranked team with a 14-5 record, 2-4 in conference play. As I mentioned, that 3-game losing streak, they're 3-5 against quality teams, and this team really struggles offensively, ranking 112th out of 364 Division I teams in points per game. Now, their strengths, strong rebounding, averaging somewhere to the tune of 34% on the offensive boards there. So they're getting some second chance opportunities. Need to do a better job of converting those into points. Effective field goal percentage defense, 38%. So they're doing a much better job on the defensive side of the ball than what we've seen so far from the offensive side of the board. Let's talk about the Florida Gators. They come in as our 5th power ranked team, and folks, that means you're in line for a number one seed in March. Got to continue to play well at home and away. So let's take a look at the matchup here as we talk about the Gators. 17-2 on the season, 4-2 in conference play, folks. You're going to lose some games in conference play this year. That's just how stacked this SEC conference is. But a 4-2 record, nothing to hold your head down if you're a Gator fan coming into this contest. 2-game winning streak, as I mentioned, 7-2 against quality teams. Elite offensive production, ranking 14th nationally in points per game. Their strength is they're excellent in their offensive rating, 121 offensive rating. That's 7th best in the nation, and this team dominates on the defensive boards with a 74% defensive rebounding percentage there. As far as when Georgia has the ball, their strengths, effective rebounding, creating second chance opportunities, as I mentioned, solid free throw shooting there for the Bulldogs, shooting at about 71.5% there from the free throw line. Florida's weaknesses on defense, they allow their opponents to get to the foul line a little too much. Their opponent's free throw rate is almost 32%. You got to keep your opponents off of the foul line. Play better defense without committing fouls. That's something that Todd Golden, head coach for the Gators, has got to do a much better job with now that we're getting deeper into conference play. Now, let's take a look at Florida's strength on offense when they have the ball. This team is one of the elite scoring teams in all of college basketball, averaging 85 points per game, and they do it by elite three-point shooting at 34% from behind the arc. Georgia's weakness, defensive inconsistencies, especially in transition defense. Key for Florida when they have the ball, whether it's coming off of a defensive rebound or they're in the half court, push the pace, stretch that Georgia defense on the perimeter and get open shots. You've been knocking them down all season. I expect you to continue to do that in this ball game. Let's take a look at the total rebounding percentage here for both teams. Slight edge to the Gators with a total rebounding percentage of 58% versus Georgia's 56%. On the offensive glass, this is where we really see a dominance here. Florida, offensive rebounding percentage, 40%. Georgia, 36.4%. Edge big time in the rebounding category, especially with Florida's dominance on both the offensive and defensive boards. As far as the turnovers, Georgia turns the ball over 13 times per game, forces about 12.5 turnovers. The Gators do a really great job of taking care of the ball. 10.5 turnovers per game, forces 12. Going to give an edge to Florida with fewer turnovers and stronger ball control in this matchup. As far as the shooting goes, looking at the breakdown, the Gators are shooting about 46.5% from the field, 34% from behind the three-point line. Georgia's not that bad, 47.5% from the field, 33% from downtown. Gonna give a slight edge to Florida with their ability to knock down shots from the perimeter. As far as clutch time situations, we call it crunch time for a reason. Georgia, 6 close games, they're 4-2. They shoot, like I said, 71% from the foul line. Florida, 4 close games, they're 2-2 in those contests, shooting about the same free throw percentage. Gonna give a slight edge to Georgia if this game is extremely tight down the stretch because they've just had more experience playing in these games. When we take a look at where this line opened, on Friday, it looks like the Gators open at a 10.5-point favorite. That is now bumped out to where the Gators are now an 11.5-point favorite. Over and under sits at 48.5 as we're recording this morning. Let's give some key players here for Georgia. Mr. Newell has to have a big game. Comes into this contest averaging about 15 points, 8 boards per game. I think he's going to have to go for 20 and 10 in this ball game, along with Salas for Georgia, averaging about 10 points per game. I think he's going to have to be in that 15 to 16 range. And Blue Cane is also going to have to get into double figures in this contest. For the Gators, taking a look at one of the best scorers, and actually 2 of the best scorers in the conference right now in Walter Clayton and Elijah Martin, averaging 19 and 18 points respectively in this contest. I think both of them are going to need to have a big-time game in this contest. And then they're going to have to find a third scorer, and that looks like Alex Condon, averages about 9 points per game, 6 assists per game. Want to see him go for about 12 and 8 in this contest. Final thoughts on this matchup for Georgia. Any hopes to win this ball game, they must control the boards. They must out-rebound Florida and capitalize on second chance points. Limit turnovers, keeping Florida from getting out in transition. For Florida, as I mentioned, push the pace, get some of those early shots before Georgia can set up on defense, and especially from knocking down the threes, knock down those threes early, get that home crowd going in this ball game and feed off of that for the full 40 minutes of this contest. And then finally, perimeter defense. Containing Georgia's 3-point shooters is a key to preventing an upset in this contest. All right, let's move on to the Texas two-step, as we're going to call it, for this matchup. And that's where we're going to find the Texas Longhorns welcoming in-state conference rival, the Texas A&M Aggies. And you are looking at the Moody Center, where the Longhorns will welcome in the Texas A&M Aggies in this marquee SEC matchup. Both teams enter this game with contrasting recent performances. Texas A&M is riding a 2-game winning streak, while Texas ending their losing streak, winning their most recent contest. Let's take a look at the team profiles here. The Aggies come in as our 23rd power ranked team with a 15-4 record, 4-2 in conference play. Excellent record against quality teams, going 10-4. Strong rebounding team, especially on the offensive glass. Offensive rebounding percentage of 41%. Folks, that's a lot of second chance opportunities there for the Aggies. Strong top tier defense, allowing just under 66 points per game. That's 39th nationally. And this team loves to force you into turnovers, averaging 13.5 forced turnovers per game. Now, the weakness for the Aggies, they are a poor 3-point shooting team, shooting at a, make sure I have this right here, 30% clip from behind the arc. Gonna have to get much better shooting there, head coach Buzz Williams, for the Aggies in this contest, especially with it being on the road. The Longhorns, 31st power ranked team in our rankings, 13-6 overall, 2-4 in conference play. Strong home record, 9-3. Good offensive efficiency is a key strength for this team, with an offensive rating of 100 and let's call it 119. That's pretty good. That record should be a lot better than that. So what are their strengths for the Longhorns? High free throw shooting efficiency, shooting almost 75% from the free throw line. That is how you stay in a lot of ball games and will eventually get you to win some of those games. Balanced scoring with contributions by multiple players. Their weakness, they struggle against really good teams, as I mentioned, 2-6 here. So when the Aggies have the ball, their offensive rebounding rate of right at 41%, getting to the free throw line with a high frequency, 41% free throw rate. That means they're getting a lot of opportunities there at the foul line. And just to kind of convert that free throw rate into free throw attempts, the Aggies are getting to the foul line 25 times per game. That, coupled with needing to shoot better from the free throw line, and I'll get to that here in just a moment, but Aggies got to shoot better from the free throw line. Texas's defensive strength, this team is solid defensive rebounding, 73% defensive rebounding percentage there, and they defend the three-point line efficiently. Their opponents only shooting 31.5% from behind the arc. So when you combine a team that struggles from shooting the three ball with a team that defends it really well, I think that's going to be very problematic for the Aggies in this ball game. So got to find some different keys here. So where is that key for the Aggies? Must rebound on the offensive glass and get those easy putbacks versus Texas' ability to secure those defensive rebounds. For the Longhorns, what are their strengths on offense? This team does a really good job of shooting inside of that three-point line. From inside the arc, shooting about 54.5%, and they have a very low turnover rate, 12.2 turnover percentage there. The Aggies' strength on defense, this team is elite on the defensive glass, 74% defensive rebounding percentage, and this team is stifling as far as opponent field goal percentage. Less than 39% is what their opponents are shooting. So I expect a very, very tight game as far as teams being able to knock down shots. Texas key in this matchup on the offense, they must have the ability to maintain offense efficient scoring against this tough A&M defense. And if you know Buzz Williams, his calling card is the defense. So seeing those metrics, not a surprise. Let's take a look at the rebounding edge here. Total rebounding percentage, 57% for the Aggies, 52% for the Longhorns. Going to give a advantage there in the rebounding category to the Aggies. As far as the turnover battle, the A&M Aggies turn the ball over about 12 times per game, and they force about 13.5 turnovers per game. Texas, 9 turnovers per game. They force almost 12 turnovers per game. Going to give an edge to Texas in taking care of the ball just a little bit better. As far as the shooting goes, the Aggies struggle from the field. 42.5% from the field, 30% from the three-point line. The Longhorns shoot 48% from the field, a little over 37% from the three-point line. Going to give the edge to Texas here for being able to shoot the ball from an overall efficiency a little bit better than the Aggies. As far as clutch situations, A&M, 8 close games, they're 6-2, only shooting 68% from the free throw line. Folks, that's going to get you beat here in conference play if you continue to shoot under 70%. As far as the Longhorns, 5 close games, they're 3-2, shooting at almost 75%. Big advantage if Texas is able to get to the foul line near their average of 21 times per game, knocking down at 75%. If this game is close, under 5 minutes, I'm going to give a big edge to the to the Longhorns against the Aggies because of their ability to not turn the ball over and knock down free throws. Taking a look at where the betting line opened, this game opened with the Longhorns as a 1-point favorite. Folks, as we sit here this morning, that line is still sitting at 1 under. The point total, is 141.5. 5. So we're looking at a very potential low-scoring contest. Let's give you some key players in this contest. Mr. Phelps for the Aggies comes in averaging about 21 points per game. As far as conference rankings go, that's second best in the conference. He also averages almost 7 rebounds per game. So gonna need him to attack in both of those areas. Mr. Payne, Pharrell Payne, 13 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game. Think he's gonna need to be around that, if not a little bit better. And Hayden Hefner, 8 points, almost 3 rebounds per game. Gonna probably need to see him get into double figures, but definitely probably gonna need him to pull down about 4 or 5 rebounds in this ball game. As far as the Longhorns, a lot of balanced scoring here out of their top 3 scorers in Trey Johnson, Jordan Pope, and Arthur Kumala. Trey averaging 15 points per game, Jordan 14 points per game, and Arthur 14 points per game. If the Longhorns can get that kind of balanced scoring out of all 3 of those in this contest, that gets you up to almost 60. Well, let's see. That gets you up to, let's call it 45 points per game if they hit their average. You're going to probably need that trio to combine for about 50 points in the ball game. Look out for that number. If that trio can get to 50, big time edge goes to the Longhorns. Final thoughts and keys for this ball game. Let's start with the Aggies. They must continue to dominate on the boards, leveraging their rebound strength to generate those second chance points, and they must defend the perimeter. Limit Texas 3-point shooting, which is a key offensive weapon for the Longhorns. For Texas, push the pace. Use their offensive efficiency to outscore Texas. If Texas is able to get this game into the upper 70s to mid 80s, big time advantage there for the Longhorns. And then finally, keep A&M off the free throw line. Do not give them a chance to get any kind of free points in this contest. All right, let's head over to Columbia, South Carolina here as they welcome in the Mississippi State Bulldogs. And folks, this is a very important matchup for the Mississippi State Bulldogs as they sit 3-3 in conference play. We know South Carolina, the only winless team remaining in conference play. South Carolina is in desperate need of snapping a 6-game losing streak, while Mississippi State looks to rebound after their last game. And let's start with Mississippi State. The Bulldogs come in as our 19th power ranked team with that 15-4 record, 3-3 in conference play. This team has been strong against quality opponents, 7-3, excellent rebounding, with a total rebounding percentage of 54%. And this team is riding on the efficiency of their top scorers. Their strengths, overall offensive consistency. This team averages about 81.5 points per game. That's 40th in the nation. And their defense excels in forcing turnovers, 13 forced turnovers per game. Their weakness, they cannot knock down shots from the 3-point line. That's a common theme here with teams that are struggling right now. They average about 32.5% from the 3-point line. Let's go to the Gamecocks. Our 89th power ranked team, 10-9 on the season, 0-6 in conference play. As I mentioned, they're riding that 6-game losing streak, and this team has struggled against quality opponents. 1-8 in 9 contests this season. Their strengths, South Carolina does a really good job of rebounding, especially on the defensive glass, 73.6% on the defensive boards. They're imbalanced scoring contributions from key players. So what are their weaknesses? Offensive inefficiency, 71.5 points per game, 262nd nationally. We got 364 teams in Division I basketball. So you can imagine how poorly that projects out. And this team struggles in close game settings, 2-4 in close games. Let's take a look at Mississippi State when they have the ball. What are their strengths? Effective inside scoring. Inside of the three-point line is where they do their damage, shooting at a 55.5% clip from inside of the three-point line. Strong rebounding presence, creating second chance opportunities, and something that Mississippi State is absolutely going to have to capitalize on in this contest. As for South Carolina, their strengths on defense, this team absolutely wipes the windows on the defensive boards there. 73.5% from the defensive rebounding percentage there. And this team does a decent job of guarding the three-point line. Their opponent's shooting 32.5% from behind the arc. Key matchup for State in this contest, they must maintain their ability to score inside versus South Carolina's defensive rebounding. Now let's take a look at the Gamecocks when they have the ball going up against this Mississippi State defense, and Chris Jans doing a fantastic job there in Starkville, building out this roster here. Balanced scoring for the Gamecocks is going to be a key in this ball game. And can they draw fouls in this contest? South Carolina averages about 23.5 free throws per game. So their free throw rate, 42%. This team likes to get to the charity stripe, and if they're able to knock down some of those free throws, record would be a little bit better. As far as Mississippi State on the defensive side, stifling defense, as I mentioned, Chris Jans, fantastic job. Limiting opponents to 42.7 field goal percentage shooting, and creating turnovers is another key for Mississippi State. The key for South Carolina going up against this Mississippi State defense, their ability to score consistently versus a Mississippi State physical defense. Let's take a look at the rebounding edge here for this matchup. Mississippi State, total rebounding percentage of 54%, 34% on the offensive glass, versus South Carolina, 52% total rebounding percentage, 28% on the glass. I'm going to give the edge here to Mississippi State with a strong presence on both ends of the court. As far as the turnover battle here, this is going to be key, I think, in this contest. Mississippi State only turns the ball over 9.5 times per game, forces 13 turnovers. That's +4 or almost +4. South Carolina, they turn the ball over 12 times per game. They only force 10. Going to give a big time edge here to Mississippi State due to their low turnover rate and defensive pressure. Let's take a look at how these teams shoot in this contest. Mississippi State, 46% field goal percentage, 32.5% from behind the three-point line. South Carolina, 44% from the field. Let's call it 33.5% from the three-point line. Slight edge to Mississippi State for their overall offensive efficiency. As far as clutch time situations, both teams have been in 6 close games in the season. Here's the difference. Mississippi State 5-1, shooting a tick below 70% from the free throw line. South Carolina 2-4. They're shooting 68.5% from the free throw line. Edge to Mississippi State due to their better performance in clutch situations. Let's take a look at the line where this game opened and where it currently sits. This line opened with Mississippi State as a 7-point road favorite. That is where we still currently sit this morning here with a over-under of 140. So odds makers are expecting a very low-scoring contest in this ball game. I want to kind of take a look at where we have this here. Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about some key players here for both teams. And let's start with Mississippi State. Josh Hubbard, 14 points per game. See, that ranks him 15th in the conference, along with RJ, who averages about 13 points per game, looks like 6 rebounds per game. Let's take a look where he is in scoring in the conference. That puts him 31st in the conference. Now, let's flip it over to South Carolina. CMB, Colin Murray Bulls, 12 and a half points per game, 8 rebounds per game. He's an efficient inside scorer there. Zachary Davis, 11, let's call it 11 and a half points per game, 5 rebounds per game. I think he's going to have to go for about 16 to 18 in this ball game if South Carolina is going to get their first conference win. Final thoughts and keys to victory for both teams. Mississippi State must continue to dominate the boards with that big rebounding advantage. Use that to generate second chance points. And then defensively, force South Carolina into turnovers and convert those into transition points. For South Carolina, they must minimize their turnovers against that Mississippi State pressure and control the pace of this game. Slow the game down to reduce Mississippi State's offensive rhythm here in this contest. And folks, we're calling for a very low scoring contest. So I'll give this one as a kind of tidbit for listening to the show. We project this total to go under. So as long as this game stays in regulation, the under is probably going to be the play in this contest. And now let's head to Coleman Coliseum for the LSU Tigers and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Let's crank this thing up here. Folks, you are looking live at Coleman Coliseum as the Alabama Crimson Tide host the LSU Tigers in this SEC matchup. The Alabama Crimson Tide comes into this contest on a 2-game winning streak, and they are heavily favored for a reason. Folks, LSU looks to rebound after a tough loss earlier this week, and they could not need a bigger road win than this one in front of them going into that hostile crowd in Coleman Coliseum. This game could further establish Alabama as not only a conference powerhouse, but it could set them up for a number 1 seed here in March. Or it could provide LSU with a crucial statement win. Let's take a look at the team profiles. LSU comes into this contest as our 62nd power ranked team, 12-6 on the season, 1-4 in conference play. I mentioned needing a win badly. Key trends for LSU, 3-6 against quality teams. This team has struggled defensively, allowing almost 70 points per game. That's 120th in the nation. However, in close games this season, LSU is 2-0. Their strengths, effective free throw shooting. Folks, the Tigers are shooting 77% from the free throw line. That is outstanding as a team. Solid defensive rebounding. This team also does a really good job on the offensive boards, it looks like, with a, let's take a look here. Yes, this team does a really good job on the defensive glass. 71% defensive rebounding percentage, not giving up a lot of second chance opportunities. Let's take a look at the home team, the Alabama Crimson Tide, our 7th power ranked team nationally, 16-3 on the season, 5-1 in conference play. What are the key trends for the Tide? 10-3 against quality teams. You want to lock down a number 1 seed, keep knocking off quality teams. They've done that. This team is the best scoring team in all of college basketball, 91 points per game. Haven't seen teams average that in quite a long time. And this team has absolutely been dominant at home, 8-1 on the season. What are the Tide's strengths? Got to start there on the offensive boards. 35% offensive rebounding percentage, and this team loves to play with the tempo. Nate Oates wants this team to run like they are Ferraris. 76.4 pace at 6 nationally, and this team has some balanced scoring and depth. something that will start to come in play as we get deeper into conference play. Let's take a look at this LSU offense when they have the ball going up against this Alabama defense. Inside of the three-point line, this team in LSU has been really good. Almost 58% from inside of the three-point line. I talked about their free throw shooting, 77%. That is absolutely impressive. Alabama's weaknesses. This team is one of the worst defensive teams in all of college basketball. Folks, 332nd nationally is where they rank points per game. Almost 79 points per game allowed. And this team struggles with putting their opponents on the free throw line. Alabama opponents have a free throw rate of 43%. That means they're putting their opponents on the free throw line way too many times this season. Key matchup, LSU, when they have the ball, their ability to score efficiently inside versus this Alabama interior defense. I think that's going to be a key for LSU in this ball game. When Alabama has the ball, folks, pace, and pace. High tempo, scoring efficiency, 91 points per game. This team is starting to find their way behind the three-point line, knocking down 32.5% on that high volume. This team wants to get up at least 43 point shots per game. If they can start knocking down at a 33 to 35% clip, folks, watch out. This team is good enough to go cut down the nets at the end of the year if they're able to knock it down like that. Offensive rebounding percentage, 35%. LSU's weakness. LSU opponents are shooting 39% from the field. Is that right? Yeah, so LSU is doing an okay job at opponent field goal percentage, needs to get better. And this team does a good job of defensive rebounding, 71%, as I mentioned. Alabama's key, continuing to knock down threes, baby. I mean, that's what Nate Oates believes in, and that's what he wants to thrive on. Alabama's shooting looks like they're upping that 3-point attempts per game. They're around 31 attempts per game. I think by the time we get to the end of the year, you're going to see that number around 35 at the end of the season. Let's get to some key stats here for this matchup. LSU total rebounding percentage, 53%, let's call it 31.5 offensive rebounding percentage. Alabama, 55% total rebounding percentage, 35% on the offensive glass. Folks, big time advantage to Alabama, especially with their offensive rebounding percentage. As far as turnovers, this is something the Tide has gotten better in. LSU turns the ball over 13 times per game, forces 12. Alabama, 12 turnovers per game, forcing about 10. Now, I'm going to give LSU a slight edge as far as being able to create opponents' turnovers just a little bit better. Now, here's the field goal shooting. And, folks, we got a little bit of a separator here. LSU, 46.5% from the field, 31, let's call it almost 32% from the three-point line. Alabama shooting almost 47.5% from the field. As I mentioned, 32.5% from the three-point line. Alabama's high efficiency and volume from deep gives them the edge in this matchup. As far as close game situations, LSU 2-0 in close games, shooting almost 77% from the free throw line. Alabama 5-1 in close games, shooting 70.5%. LSU has the slight edge in this category only because of the better free throw percentage shooting there. Let's take a look at where the betting lines open at for this matchup. Our guys in the desert had the Alabama Crimson Tide open as a 16-point favorite at home. Folks, that line is bumped out even further. The Tide now sitting at a 17-point favorite. Would not be surprised if that number hits 17.5, possibly even 18 before tip-off. All right, let's give you some key players to watch here. Cam Carter, talked about him a lot, and he's going to need a big time performance. Fourth leading scorer in South Conference conference play at 19.5 points per game, shooting 95% from the free throw line. Going to need to get him to the line, and he's going to have to knock down shots. Jordan Sears. Jordan averaging about 12.5 points per game. Going to need a big time performance from him as well. And I'm also talking about DC, Damian Collins, 8 points per game. I think he's going to have to get into double figures here in this contest. Everything, when we start with the Tide, it starts with the number one scorer in conference play, and that is Mark Sears. He's making a strong case for being SEC Player of the Year, especially with Mr. Broom for Auburn missing as many games as he's missed. I think Mark Sears is probably going to lock up SEC Conference Player of the Year here by the time the season wraps up. 21 points per game, gets the foul line 9 times per game, and then he's knocking down 86% from the free throw line. So he wants to get to the line and knock down those freebies there at the foul stripe. Aiden Holloway, 13.5 points per game, shooting almost 57% from the 3-point line. Let's take a look into that a little bit deeper here. Okay, so it looks like he is knocking down about 2 3-pointers per game. So that's why he's now the second leading scorer for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Grant Nelson. This young man is starting to be a walking double-double here. 11 points per game, almost 9 boards per game. If you start to get 15 and 10 out of him, watch out, America. This team is going to be scary. Final thoughts and keys to this matchup. LSU must limit Alabama's second chance points by controlling the boards, slowing the pace, and forcing Alabama into half-court sets like we saw with Ole Miss last week. Alabama must maintain their offensive tempo, attacking LSU's defense early in possession, something that they like to do, and then dominate the offensive rebounding and capitalize on extra opportunities. I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup there for this game at Coleman Coliseum. LSU has to get off to a very fast start in this ball game, because if that crowd at Coleman gets to rocking early, folks, this game could get away from LSU quite early in this contest. We got 2 more matchups to go before we exit out of here. Let's head to Columbia, Missouri, where we see the Ole Miss Rebels come into this contest against the Missouri Tigers, and you are looking live here at Missouri Arena. This is a critical game for both teams in this matchup. Both teams are aiming to bounce back from recent losses and strengthen their positions in the conference standings. Let's start with the Ole Miss Rebels. Come in as our 22nd power ranked team, 15-4 on the season, 4-2 in conference play. This team has been very competitive against quality opponents, 6-4 on the season. They are, however, riding a 2-game losing streak. Their strengths: really good job from the 3-point line, 35% from the 3-point line, and a staple of head coach Chris Beard, disciplined defense. This team forces turnovers, 15 forced turnovers per game. Team's got to do a little bit better job on the offensive glass, only rebounding the offensive glass at make sure I'm looking at this. Yeah, this team is really struggling on the offensive glass. 24.8% offensive rebounding percentage. Not getting a lot of second chance opportunities for the Missouri Tigers. Power ranked 25th in the nation for us. 15-4 overall, 4-2 in conference play. Key trends: they are undefeated at home, 14-0. Did lose their last contest, but other than that, have been performing quite well. Their strengths, high scoring offense, 83 points per game. That's 24th nationally. And this team does a great job of getting to the free throw line. Almost a 50% free throw rate. That is unheard of. 28 foul shots per game. Folks, this team is aggressive going to the glass, drawing contact, and then getting to the foul line. Now, this team needs to do a little bit better job on the defensive rebounding metrics there. 69.8 defensive rebounding percentage. Gotta improve there on that category. Let's take a look at the Rebels when they have the ball. Balanced scoring attack with multiple scorers averaging double figures there. And as I mentioned, effective shooting there from the three-point line, 35% there. Missouri's defensive strength. This team forces turnovers quite a bit. 14 and a half forced turnovers per game. Strong interior defense. Their opponents shooting less than 42% from the field. Key matchup for the Rebels, knocking down threes in this ball game. I think that's going to be very imperative for Ole Miss if they are going to leave Columbia with a win. They must knock down the three-point shot there. For Missouri, when they have the ball, Missouri's strength, well, it's their explosive scoring. I mentioned it, 83 points per game, high free throw rate and efficiency. Ole Miss strengths on defense. This team does a great job. As I mentioned, Chris Beard, one of the best coaches in America as far as building out a defensive game plan. Opponents, 40% from the field, 29% from the three-point line. Must generate turnovers. Key for Missouri in this ball game. Fast-paced offense versus Ole Miss's ability to slow down the tempo. We saw this play out when Ole Miss went to Coleman Coliseum and got a win a week ago. Going to need to kind of have that same kind of defensive philosophy in this matchup. As far as the rebounding stats, Ole Miss total rebounding percentage of 49%, and as I mentioned, struggled on the offensive glass, less than 25% offensive rebounding. Missouri, total rebounding percentage, 51.5, 31.7 offensive rebounding percentage. Missouri edge in the rebounding, especially with the offensive rebounding opportunities in this ball game. Both teams do a really good job of taking care of the ball. Ole Miss, about 9 turnovers per game, forcing 15. Excellent work there. Missouri turns the ball over about 10.5 times per game, forces about 14.5. Gonna give the edge here to Ole Miss due to their ability to protect the ball and create turnovers. As far as the shooting edge goes, Ole Miss from the field, 44.5% from the field, 35% from three. Missouri, 48.5% from the field, 37% from three. Missouri's going to get the edge here because of their overall shooting and three-point accuracy. As far as key clutch game situations, Ole Miss, 6 close games. They're 3-3, shooting 73% from the free throw line. Missouri, 4-4 in such contests. 4 close games, 3-1, shooting 72% from the foul line. Going to give Missouri a slight edge because of their ability to pull out late game wins on the season so far. Let's take a look at where this line opened. Missouri opened as a 3-point favorite. That is still where this line currently sits. Let's give some key players here for Ole Miss. Malik has been doing just a great job. 15 points per game. Look where that puts him in the conference. 12th in the conference, along with Sean Padula at 13 points per game, and then Mr. Brakefield at 13 points per game. Gonna need balanced scoring out of all of them, and gonna probably need at least 15 points from all three just to try to keep pace here with Missouri. As far as the Tigers go, it is just absolute balanced scoring here. whether it's Martin Mitchell, Tamar Bates, both of them averaging 12.5 points per game, 32nd in the conference, along with Caleb Grill, 11 points per game, knocks down about 2.5 3-pointers per game. So gonna need another big time performance from him as well. Final thoughts and keys to victory for both teams. Ole Miss must protect the paint, limit Missouri's second chance opportunities and scoring inside of the paint, and must continue to dominate the turnover battle here. Force turnovers, not only to get Missouri out of their offensive rhythm, but to get some easy baskets there if you're Ole Miss backer here. And for Missouri, continue to take advantage of your rebounding edge here. Exploit Ole Miss's rebounding deficiencies, especially on the offensive glass. Don't give Ole Miss a lot of second chance opportunities in this contest. Control the tempo. Use your up tempo to get Ole Miss off balance. I think kind of like we saw against the Crimson Tide, if this is in the upper 60s to low 70s, advantage Ole Miss. If this game gets into the high 70s, low 80s, big time advantage for Missouri. So want to keep an eye on the first half to see how this game is pacing out to really get a feel for who's going to come away with this very important victory in conference play. Folks, 2 more games to wrap up, and we're going to head over to watch this game here later on this afternoon as the Kentucky Wildcats come into Nash Vegas to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores. Let's crank that up a little bit. You are looking live at historic Memorial Gymnasium as the Vanderbilt Commodores will host the Kentucky Wildcats in this key SEC matchup. Both teams are looking to recover from recent losses and strengthen their positions in conference standings. Vanderbilt relies on that home court advantage, while Kentucky's high-powered offense seeks to exploit defensive mismatches. Let's start there with the Kentucky Wildcats. 14th in our power rankings, 14-4 overall, 3-2 in conference play. Key trends here for Kentucky: 6-4 against quality teams. And in close game situations, the Wildcats are 4-2. You want to talk about explosive offense? Only sit behind Alabama's forced points per game at 89 points per game. Efficient scoring. Hey, when you're scoring 89 points per game, you're knocking down shots. Effective field goal percentage of 48%. From behind the arc, almost 37%. Holy smokes. On the defensive boards. Now, on the defensive side, I should say, 76 points per game. They give up a lot of points nationally, but they're scoring, so that balanced that out. Strong in turnovers forced per game at 10 forced turnovers per game. The Vanderbilt Commodores, 44th in our power rankings, 15-4, 3-3 in conference play. They also are 3-3 against quality teams, 3-0 in close games, 10-1 playing at home in front of that home crowd. 82.3 points per game, 33rd nationally. Free throw reliability, you better believe it, knocking down 75% of their free throws. On the defensive defensive end, allowing 69.6 points per game, 121st nationally. Effective against turnovers forced. This team forces almost 15 turnovers per game. Let's take a look at the matchup here. When Kentucky has the ball, they're looking for fast pace, kind of like Alabama. They want to get up and down the floor. Elite scoring ability and sharp shooting from the three-point line. Vanderbilt's strength on defense. Vandy does a really good job of defensive rebounding and forcing turnovers. Key matchup for Kentucky when they have the ball. They must protect the ball and capitalize on second chance opportunities against Vanderbilt's high turnover creation there on defense. As far as when the Commodores have the ball going up against this Kentucky defense, Vandy's free throw shooting and balance scoring from multiple players will be a key in this contest for the Commodores. Transition defense and shot blocking, keys for Kentucky, averaging almost 5 blocked shots per game. Key matchup, Vandy's ability to generate quality looks against this Kentucky shot-altering presence in the paint. Let's take a look at the rebounding advantage here. Kentucky, let's call it 53% total rebounding percentage, 30% on the offensive glass. As far as the Commodores, let's call it 51% total rebounding percentage, 30% offensive rebounding percentage. I'm going to call this even because both teams do an excellent job of offensive rebounding. As far as turnovers, both teams are absolutely excellent as far as taking care of the ball. Kentucky, 9.5 turnovers per game. They force about 10.5 turnovers per game. Commodores just a little bit better. They commit, let's call it 10 turnovers per game, but they're forcing 15 turnovers per game. Going to give the edge here to the Commodores just because of their superior turnover generation there. As far as pace of play go, Kentucky wants to play just at a little bit faster tempo, but Vanderbilt is no walk it up and slow roll it either. Something to keep in mind in that ball game. As far as clutch situations, Kentucky 4-2 in close game situations, shooting 74% from the free throw line. The Commodores 3-0 in close game situations, shooting 75%. Gonna give an edge here to the Commodores because of their perfect record in tight game situations and playing at home. Let's take a look at where this line opened. Our guys in the desert opened Kentucky as a 3.5 point road favorite. Folks, that line is ticked way down. Vandy getting a lot of love here playing at home. That line now sits with Kentucky as a 2-point favorite. So significant line movement there in that matchup. Over and under for this contest, 166.5. Folks, Vegas expecting a lot of balls to be going through the basket here in this contest. Let's start with key players in this matchup. Jackson Robinson, got to start with him. 8th best scorer in conference play right now at a tick below 16 points per game, knocking down over 3.5 shots from behind the 3-point line, shooting almost 44% from the 3-point line. Holy smokes, that is fantastic there. Double O, as I like to call him, Ottawa, 15 points per game, 5 rebounds per game. Want to see him getting on the defensive boards a little bit more than what we've seen so far. And then Lamont Butler, 14.5 points per game, almost 7 assists per game. Gonna need a big time performance for him. Let's take a look at the key players for the Commodores. As I mentioned, a lot of balance scoring here for Vanderbilt, led by Jason Edwards, 14 points per game. Likes to get to the foul line at almost 5 free throw attempts per game. He shoots 86% from the charity stripe. AJ Hoggart, 13 points per game, 4.5 assists per game. He shoots 78% from the free throw line. Are you noticing a trend here? And then Tyler Nickel, 10 points per game. He knocks down 2.5 made threes per game, shooting at a 42% clip from behind the arc. Final thoughts and keys to victory for Kentucky: utilize their fast-paced offense and wear down this Vanderbilt defense. Also, limit turnovers to avoid Vandy's transition scoring opportunities. For the Commodores, capitalize on turnovers forced to create easy scoring chances. Then control the tempo, dominate on the glass against Kentucky's aggressive style of play. I think this is going to be a very hard-fought contest. I think it's going to be a high-scoring contest, folks. I'm going to give you another freebie here. I'm going to take that over in this contest. I think both teams are going to get up and down the floor quite a bit in this matchup. And folks, that brings us to our game of the week.
Well, it's the big show. Yes, it's a big bad show tonight.
And folks, you are looking at Neville Arena with a heavyweight prize fight with the Tennessee Volunteers. Hello to my good friend Julie Valls, taking on the Auburn Tigers. Hello to my good friend Matlock. You've heard me talk about those two on their fantastic show, Matlock and Loaded. Check them out on wearesportsradio.com from 5 to 7 Central Time, Monday through Friday. Check out their Twitter at Matlock850 Radio. Love those two to death and have the pleasure of joining them each and every week. So let's get into a very interesting matchup for these two, and around these parts, we do like interesting. So, Tina, crank it all the way up. You are looking live at Neville Arena as the Auburn Tigers welcome in the Tennessee Volunteers in this pivotal SEC clash. The Tigers are undefeated at home and look to maintain their stronghold not only on the top of the conference standings, but entering March Madness as the number one overall seed. The Tennessee Volunteers are still riding high with their fantastic early start to the season. This is going to be a very tough matchup for both teams. The potential absence of Johnny Brom, as he's listed as questionable, I expect him to be out. He's not only Auburn's leading scorer, but he's also Auburn's leading rebounder. Could significantly impact this ball game. Folks, the Tennessee Volunteers come in as our sixth power ranked team, 17-2 on the season, 4-2 in conference play. This team absolutely gets it done against quality opponents, going 7-2 against quality opponents, 2-1 in close game situations. Their offense averages 76 points per game. Effective offensive rebounding percentage, you better believe it, 38% on the offensive rebounding glass. Defensively, this team absolutely is stifling as far as opponent points per game. Less than 59 points per game, third nationally. And this team excels on the perimeter defense. Their opponents shooting less than 26% from the three-point line. The Auburn Tigers, our number one power ranked team, 17-1 on the season, 5-0 in conference play, 10-1 against quality teams, 5-1 in close game situations. And this team absolutely defends their home court like nobody's business. Undefeated at home, 8-0 on the season so far. Explosive on offense, absolutely, 86 points per game. That's 10th nationally. This team excels at field goal percentage, 50% from the field, 38% from behind the arc. This team is no slouch on the defensive end either, allowing just 66 points per game and leading the nation in block shots per game at 7 block shots per game. Let's take a look at Tennessee when they have the ball. Offensive rebounding and free throw shooting, keys for the Volunteers. 76% from the free throw line. Fantastic job, team shooting there. For Auburn, their rim protection. This team averages 7 blocks per game and defensive rebounding percentage of 74%. Folks, this Auburn Tiger team does not like you to get second chance opportunities. Key for Tennessee when they have the ball, they must find a way to create second chance opportunities versus that Auburn shot blocking presence. It's not just the block shots, it's also the shots that they alter. So when you think about it, if a team is averaging 7 blocks per game, they're probably affecting another 5 or 6 shots So something to keep in mind here for the Volunteers. When Auburn has the ball, you want to talk about elite offensive efficiency numbers. When you're shooting 50% from the field, 38% from behind the three-point line, this is why they're the number one team in the nation. Tennessee, elite defense. And I mean elite defense, especially limiting their opponents to perimeter shooting. Less than 26%, as I mentioned, from behind the three-point line. Now, Auburn has shown the ability to adapt with Johnny not being in the lineup with that ankle injury. He's getting closer and closer to 100%. I think Bruce Pearl is going to caution, err on the side of caution there and hold him out in this contest. Key rebounding stats here. Tennessee, 57% total rebounding percentage, 38% offensive rebounding percentage. Auburn, 55.5 total rebounding percentage, 34% offensive rebounding percentage. Going to give the edge here to Tennessee, slight edge, however, so it may be. As far as turnovers, Tennessee commits 12.5 turnovers per game. I'm sorry, let me back up and reread this here. Tennessee forces 12.5 turnovers per game while committing just 10 turnovers per game. Auburn forces almost 11 turnovers per game, committing just 9 turnovers per game. Going to give a big time edge to Auburn as for superior ball control. Both teams play at a similar pace. Auburn just a little bit prefers the up tempo just a little bit better. Both teams very good in clutch situations. Tennessee 2-1, 76% from the free throw line. Auburn 5-1, 74.5% from the free throw line. Going to give an edge to Auburn just because this game is at home and they have a little bit more experience playing in these tight game situations. Vegas opened this line with the Auburn Tigers as a 6.5 point favorite. As we look here on the board, that number has come down to where now Auburn is just a 5.5 point favorite. Total sits at 141. So Vegas is expecting a lower scoring ball game due to both teams excelling on the defensive end. Some key players, Chaz Lanier, averaging almost 16 points per game, knocking down 3-point attempts per game. Double Z, Zakiah, 13 points per game, almost 7 assists per game. Going to need a big time performance. For Auburn, Mr. Pettiford, 14 points per game, knocking down 2.5 3-pointers per game. Going to need a big time performance from him. CBM, 14 points per game, 3 rebounds per game. Going to need another big time performance for him. Final thoughts and keys. Tennessee, control the boards and capitalize on second chance points. Force Auburn into a half court game to neutralize their offensive flow. For the Auburn Tigers, establish offensive balance to exploit Tennessee's defense when you have the opportunity. Protect the ball against this Tennessee defense. Take care of the ball. Get some really good open looks in this contest. I think it's going to be a very close ball game. You're seeing that reflected out here in the numbers. Folks, enjoy your SEC college basketball this Saturday. We'll see you next time on the SEC conference call.
Thank you for tuning in to the SEC conference call. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and our deep dive into all things SEC basketball. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at CrunchTimeVIP for updates, insights, and more basketball content. And make sure to visit our website at crunchtimesportsadvantage.com for in-depth blogs, game previews, and information about our Crunch Time Express handicapping packages. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on the SEC conference call.